We're looking at the first 18 of the Gospel of Thomas manuscript, this global message which we are deconstructing back to its themes. The next set of themes, again, introduces a new concept to us. And the theme is the eternal change and continuity. And it sort of links back to the 5 elements, the 5 trees in paradise. It's this: nothing is lost, everything is renewed, recycled, that every atom, every molecule changes. When something dies, it changes into something else. It becomes something else, but nothing is ever lost. And it's that understanding of the consciousness and the world that we are immersed in, and it's getting us to think along those lines. So there are 3 sayings that link that theme together. So we'll read them out now, and then we'll pull them to pieces. 1:10, Jesus said, "This heaven will pass away, and that which is above will pass away also. And the dead are not alive, and the living will not die. In the days you are eating that which is dead, you are making it alive. When you come into the light, what will you do? On the day when you were one, you were made 2. Now that you have become 2, what will you do?" 1:11. The disciples said to Jesus, "We know that you will go away from us. Who shall be our teacher?" And Jesus said, "Wherever you are to go to James the righteous, for whom the heaven and earth came into being." 1:12. Jesus said to his disciples, "Compare me to others and tell me who I am like." Simon Peter said to him, "You are like a righteous angel or a messenger." Matthew said, "You are like a wise philosopher." Thomas said, "Master, my mouth is not capable of saying who you are like." Jesus said, "I am not your master. Because you have become drunk from the bubbling spring that I have measured out." And he took him and withdrew and spoke to him 3 words. Sometimes it's written as 3 things. When Thomas returned to his companions, they asked him, "What did Jesus say to you?" Thomas said to them, "If I tell you even one word of what he has said to me, you will take up stones and cast them at me, and fire will come out of the stones and burn you." There's quite a lot in there. Let's start with 1:10, because immediately you can see that theme of eternal change and continuity when it's spoken about. Heaven will pass away, and that which is above it will pass away. It's telling us this world will disappear, and the universe will disappear. And that's an incredible insight. 2,000 years ago, somebody speaking in those terms. And science tells us, well, it's so many billions of years, 3.8 billion, from the Big Bang. And eventually everything will expand, and then it will contract back down and start all over again. That's an incredible insight there for 2,000 years ago. And this eternal change tells us the dead are not alive and the living will not die. So saying those things that are dead are not alive in the way that we regard them. And the living will not die. That's a reference to the eternal. That's to the living spirit. That's consciousness. When he's speaking about living, he's not referring to the human part. The human part often is referred to as a corpse within the sayings, because we regard that as a being alive. Jesus is regarding the non-physical as the bit which is life. That's the thing that animates the physical body. That's the bit which is alive. And he's telling us that bit can't die. The human body, when it doesn't have a living spirit within us, it doesn't animate. It's dead. It rots down. It becomes something else. And it's living here, which is being referred to as a living spirit. In the days when you were eating that which is dead, you made it alive. And again, it's looking at that cycle of continuity. You kill something, you eat it, and in eating it, it creates life. It's asking us to look at that process through fresh eyes. Look at ourselves and look at the world around us. We are part of something which is in continual change. Species evolve, they mutate, they change. Nothing is lost. We're all on this same blue marble spinning through space. Everything in there just gets reused over and over and over. And it's asking us to understand that and look at ourselves in regard to that continuity. Not to see it as conception or birth to death, this kind of linear thing, beginning and end. He's asking us not to look at it as a beginning and end, but to look at it as a continuity. And that part of that continuity is that we have a living spirit which is on this eternal process. It is part of this reincarnation process over and over. And it is part of our task to help it move to the next level. Exciting. Let's look at saying 111. The disciples asked, "We know that you will go away from us." They are looking at beginning and end. They have this fear of what happens when Jesus is gone. Where do we turn to? What do we do next? And Jesus is saying here, you'll go to James. Well, James was many decades after Jesus. But if we take the names and the historical ideas out of this, and we look at this in terms of the theme, which is the eternal change and continuity, then we see that there are people who are beginning to awaken. There are people of a potential that are beginning to understand and get what this message is all about. You may well be one of those people, and you will become that rock, that stone that ministers that we spoke about earlier. It is the continuity of the message. That continuity is coming from what you read and what you hear and what you understand. And that goes into you, and that begins this change. Now, it may well be that in the future you become that person that people gravitate towards, and then you pass that consciousness along to them. It is this momentum which is there. Saying 112 which is where Jesus is asking to be compared. What he's really doing is seeing what level of understanding his followers or disciples have had. Disregard the names, because it's quite obvious that the names were added at a future point, and we have no idea really of the names of the followers that Jesus had. But he's described as a righteous angel. He's described as a philosopher. And then one disciple, here it's Thomas, says, I have no idea what to call you. I just cannot describe what it is that you are. And that is the place that we're in. It's very, very difficult to describe a person who is unified when they are both physical and non-physical, when they have that connection to two dimensions. How do you describe a person like that and the capacity that they have to understand the construction of the universe and the world around them? Is an astonishing thing. Jesus says, I am not your master. That's quite a poignant thing to say. Jesus is not saying that I am in control of you in any way. I am not your master, he says. And that's important because it then reinforces this individual journey that you are on. There isn't somebody in control. There isn't somebody telling you what you can and can't do and how you should go about this thing. You are the master of your own destiny, and it is not the teacher who is the master here. In this saying, Jesus takes his disciple off and he shares this 3 words or a phrase with the disciple. Now, if you look in many books, there are lists of what those words could be. And 2 of the most used phrases are, I am, who am I? Or I am that I am. And what came to me when I was writing this out is the phrase, I am, what am I? I am, I exist. When you get rid of all of the programming and fears and behaviors and reactions, when all of those things start to fall off, you reach this place that you can reach in meditation where you just exist. And then the question becomes, what am I? Not who am I, definitely not that I am. I am, what am I? That may well be the very first thought of the living consciousness that created all of this. It exists. But in existing, the thought arises, what am I? You are a consciousness, unbound, eternal consciousness that has the thought, what am I? And it is that triggers this evolutionary process of splitting itself into hundreds of millions of billions of micro consciousness is that sow the seed in the universe that has been created. And it is those that give the feedback. It is those that bring the knowledge back to answer that question of what am I? It's an astonishing thought. And we will come back to that. I am. What am I? Over and over. Because fundamentally, it is inside of you to answer that question. At the end of 1:12, Thomas goes back to his compatriots and they say, what did Jesus tell you? And he says, well, I can't tell you anything. I can't share that with you because you're not ready. And you'll just react against me. You'll tell me that I'm a liar. You'll throw stones at me. Because he knows that he's just had a nugget of truth, which is so far beyond the majority of people's understanding that he simply can't share it. He'll be called mad if he does. So these three sayings sit together under this banner, under this theme of eternal change and continuity. And you can see now how these three are guiding our thoughts in that direction. It's taking us out of our factual world, our factual existence, and it's opening us up once again to this idea that you are something more than you ever imagined that you were. It's an extraordinary group of sayings.